good morning, everyone. Anyone hear me? Ooh, good morning, everyone. Oh, a little bit of echo. It's last minute, so we'll see if a few people show up. Before we start ripping into this thing. So 2 people watching. Who do we have in the chat? Let's see who's here. Oh, hey, it looks like we have a few people. Hey, Ray, Nilla. How's it going? That's all right, Dick. Yeah, it's probably a good day to mow the lawn. Morning, Ray. We're do some work on this guy here. We're just waiting to see if a few more people show up. And otherwise, it's going to be a very boring stream. Yeah, it's 9 a.m. here. It's still morning. I'm still on my first cup of coffee. Let's see how this other, I guess, camera view looks while we're waiting. There's my down shot. Let's see here. Tennis. Oh, hey. Good morning, Paul. I thought you were packing today. Tennis. Haven't played tennis probably since high school. All right. Well, I guess while we wait and see if anyone else shows up, it's noon here and I've mowed, weed-eated, fertilized lawn, have a bunch of wood. Yeah, I want to be packing. Well, you should be packing. Oh, while we wait and see if anyone else shows up, let me show you these things. Let me change the camera to the top view. So these are what we're going to be doing here. First one is we have the aluminum plate from RepRap Champion that will replace the stamped steel plate down here. It's nice anodized finish, but it's much more sturdy and hopefully it won't twist when you're trying to auto level. And then we have the Z-brace kit here, which is, rather than printed parts, it's actually all aluminum pieces. And I guess we could start taking that out of the packaging. And it uses a turnbuckle style principle for that. Let's see here. Let's see if we can start ripping that off a bit here so I can show you what these look like. Let me show the volumes up. There we go. No, it remembers, Ray, it remembers mod status from previous live streams. So anybody that had been made a mod previously still is a mod. So if you wanted to give yourself a timeout, you could. All right. It's always easier said than done trying to unpackage these things, isn't it? They're wrapped in saran wrap, which you would think would be easy to get off, but it never is. Where is the X-Acto knife? There we go. We'll see if we can get the razor knife in here and get ourselves a seam. Man, What a pita. I don't want to scratch this by going all the way down it with the knife, but let's see what we can do. Yeah, it'll be in and out. I think I'll work on the dice plates, WD-40 and soft cloth. That sounds good. This isn't going to be overly exciting stream. It's probably more targeted towards people who have the DI3. Let's see if we can go there for now. So, I mean, it's the structural concepts that we'll discuss or what this offers probably apply to most of the Prusa style platforms. But in this case, these are specific mods for the DI3 itself. Man, this is a pain in the butt. While I respect how nicely they wrapped it, it should come with a little minion to do the unwrapping for you. So this Z-Brace kit, there's plenty of Z-Brace kits out there on Thingiverse or all over the web for this that use self-printed parts, kind of DIY kits. They use self-printed parts and just threaded rod from your local hardware store. This kit was a little bit pricier from RepRap discount. I did put the link for both versions of this, the DI3 version and the DI3 Plus version. Generically the DI3. But this one is a little bit more expensive because it has these nice aluminum rods and the turnbuckles. If you guys can see those up there. So it's actually an adjustable aluminum rod that threads in and out with the turnbuckle on it, rather than just the the raw threaded rods and plastic printed parts, and all the brackets for this are aluminum as well. Oop. Down, it's clipping a bit. All right, thanks Noah. I will do that. Let me step around to the other side here. Bleep, bleep, bleep. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Waiting for the chat to catch up. Check 1, 2. That's still clipping, or is that better, folks? Good, good. Yeah, we had a comment a few weeks ago that my audio was too low on the videos, so I was trying to bump that up a notch, but apparently what I see on the meters as acceptable versus what people hear, I guess there's a happy medium in there somewhere. Great. Thanks for mentioning that, guys. So this will be probably a 3-hour stream with about 2 hours of that removing this stupid packaging. Kidding. Almost there. Probably should have done this before the stream, but I wanted to give you guys the full experience. That, and I frankly just have not had time to. All right. There we go. One down. All right. So the entire rod there, it has the 2 turnbuckles on either side and the nice coated aluminum that it threads into. As you adjust it, and then there is a lock nut there to get your sizing right. These are very well made. I want to say the kit was close to 50 bucks, as opposed to doing it yourself out of Home Depot and printed parts. You could probably do it for about $15 to $20. But I did want to get a chance to get the nicer, more professional looking kit. In my mind, this was just much better looking. Let's see if since this is saran wrap wrapped, if we could find the edge, it might be easier. Nope. Oh. Maybe an alternate way to do this. Let's see. Yes, Ray, your way. With the Home Depot printed parts. Which isn't necessarily bad. Again, I just wanted to try this out because it seemed like a much more professional looking and robust piece. I wanted to see, other than cosmetics, if it was worth the money for the rigidity and the lightness, you know, that the turnbuckle would offer other than the linear rod. Let's see if this works any better. I took the... There we go. Put that back on. Okay, so we have our 2 aluminum rods and the rubbish. And let's look at these pieces here. So it comes with all necessary hardware and plates. There are 2 bags of, it looks like, M3 and N5 screws here. And then the brackets here, there's 2 upper and 2 lower. And these are actually, rather than printed, these are actually nice anodized aluminum parts. And hopefully that'll focus. It's actually very nice pieces. So I like this. So fit and finish, the kit is definitely much nicer than using the off-the-shelf parts. All right, so let's set these aside for the moment. We already looked at the Y plate here. Now the Y plate, again, is its solid, I think it's 5mm aluminum. Let's take a look. Nope, 4mm. I stand corrected. 4mm aluminum, so it's got a nice solid edge, but it's not tweaking or bending. Now, the nice thing about this plate, from what I understand, is it's cut for all versions of the Di3. So it has the bolt hole patterns for the 4-bearing version or for the 3-bearing version, and for the 2 different orientations of mounting the belts on the bottom. My only complaint is most of the edges are nicely deburred, but there was a few edges as I opened it up, this one corner here, and a few others that are actually pretty sharp. But I'm not really complaining about that. And again, its fit and finish is really good. It's first, when I looked at it, I was concerned that it wasn't actually true anodizing. It almost felt like it was sprayed with maybe a polyurethane or something, that it had a spray coating feel to it. It wasn't until I actually got it out under the light that I was able to look at that a little better. The last thing that I want to do here is I picked these up from Folgertech, and they're available elsewhere, but that was the cheapest place and I could find. And these are the IGUS Drylin bearings, and I think, Dick, if you're still there, I think you had done these upgrades on some of your printers as well, if I recall. But got a handful of these, so my original intention was I was going to also do it on the x-axis as well, but when they replaced the printer for me under warranty when that board burnt out, they replaced it with the 2.1 style, which has the LM88 LUU, the long bearings on top here. So I need to look and see how that's going to work with the Drylin bearings, because they're the short style, not the long ones. So let's see where we're at now. I'm going to pop off the steppers here, and we're going to run this all the way up, get it out of the way, so we have more space to work with. Okay. Now, next thing is the Built-Tac magnetic top plate is going to come off. I just used the binder clips because I was moving this around, so I didn't want the glass bed to fall off in transit, but that should, with a little incentive, should just come right off there. And this has that, I think I showed it in the flex bed upgrade, but that has the Genopad there, which adheres really nicely to the stock aluminum heater plate. I'm going to set these aside for a moment. We'll move those over there out of the way. Probably cheaper than a kilo. Yes, Ray, definitely cheaper than a lot of carbon fiber filament. One of the best mods I made on my V2 was the X-axis idler support for the idler on the right side of the printer. I missed earlier, so I'm not sure if you're doing that one. Mark, that's not on the list for now. If you have a link to that, I'd be interested in seeing it. I will be doing a lot of replacement, or a lot of work, I should say, on the X-axis itself. Eventually, this is going to get a Titan on it and an E3D V6 or the components thereof. So I'm not doing too, and of course a BL Touch as well. So I'm not doing too much with the X-axis at this point because I want to do all that at once. So we'll come back to that one. Let me set these aside here. Yeah. Agreed, Ray. The Arrow might be a nice option, and that's definitely one I'm looking into. Yep, there is a plate for the Arrow. There's several options and different plates and stuff available. So I'm going to set the Z-axis kit aside for now. That's on the back side of this morning, if we have time for it. I don't want to keep the stream going too long today. It is Sunday, and I do have familial obligations. So let me kick this over to the upper cam, and we'll start. Try to move that out here a bit. So let's start by taking this top apart. dig into ripping the bed apart. Now, one of the big things, as I understand it, that this Y plate upgrade helps with is because it's much more rigid, and we'll see that when we get this heat bed off here. We'll lift that gently out of there. And let's see if I can slide this through. Just so everybody that's never seen the bottom of the Di3, you've got your solder points up here for the heater, and whenever you have this off, it's always a good time to take a look at those, just to make sure that everything looks nicely bridged. These are kind of not the best looking solder joints in the world. And we're going to pull 4 screws out of there, but also to look and make sure that your thermistor is still sitting there, nicely tucked down, and my springs are rolling away. But always a good idea to look at those while you have it, just to make sure the electronics are sound. Now, this is the stock plate, and as you can see, it's stamped steel. And if you can hear that, it's not the most rigid thing in the world. So we are going to rip into ripping it apart. Okay. All right. I'm going to kill the mic just for a minute so that you don't have to hear the power tools going off. Power tools are off. So let's take a look at this plate here. Let's let it focus in on it. So you can see it's stamped to try to give it a little bit of rigidity. It is nicely powder coated there, but if you can tell, it's got some flex to it. So what happens when you try to level, it flexes on the corners and pulls up, and it makes it hard to keep your bed level as the springs pull against it. It also makes it inconsistent, so that from print to print, as things settle on the springs, you're constantly having to re-level. So hopefully this more rigid aluminum plate is going to help resolve that. Let's take a look at lining up the holes, and everything very nicely lines up. So before we're going to set this plate aside, we'll check back at the chat. Robert, I do have a magnetic parts tray. I just don't have it out here on this bench. This black surface on the desktop here is rubberized. It's non-skid, so things don't tend to roll away too much. Also, a lot of these screws are non-ferrous, so that they actually are not magnetic. All of my other printers, all the hardwares, and Ray can attest to this, all the hardware has been replaced by stainless hardware, since I live out here by the beach and they tend to rust. So this is about the only one that still has the stock hardware. But I do have one of those. It's just not in use here today. Thanks, Mark. I will Google that and look into seeing if that's an upgrade that we want to do on this guy. All right. So the next thing here that we want to do is I want to remove these Y screws here. There's 4 screws on the back of here. And I'm going to do one side as a time. That should theoretically just lift out and slide off. I may need to loosen that small guy up there. Sorry guys, the camera doesn't pick up the back side of this very well, but there is a set screw at the top of this little bracket. There it is. It's a set screw at the top of that little bracket. So if you loosen that up, the bar comes up just enough for you to slide these off. And we have the bearing inside of there. So first thing I'm going to do with these guys, whilst I have it out, is wipe off the rod, since we don't necessarily want any of that oil or gunk on there onto the plastic bearings once we get those in there. And then we will look at popping these guys out. Now, from what I've read, I just need to put something in there to spread it. Let's see. Hopefully this is something I can do here on camera. Yep, just a little bit of a flat-bladed screwdriver, and that seems to be pushing itself out. I wonder if it'll shake out. Need more hands. There we go. One bearing out. Oh. Try this a different way. That was much easier. I just used a little tweaker to push it through there. Okay, we have those two. So I'm going to wipe the bearings off. We'll set those over here for now. I'm going to... I don't know what type of oil that they may have used on this at the factory, so I want to try to wipe that out of there. Since we are putting in a plastic bearing, while they say that some types of lubricants do improve the performance of the Drylin bearings, we definitely don't want to use anything that is petrol-based in there. Well, then again, that these are plastic, so you would think they wouldn't use anything petrol-based based on those. But petrol-based oils will eventually start dissolving those. So let's grab the Drylin bearings. I'm going to slide these over just to make sure that they fit. And they do. And we're going to reverse this process. Use my tweaker as a push tool. Going to use the flat-bladed screwdriver to open it up. And that should just slide right into the middle. And it does. The grooves on the bearings grab. Oh, and it pushes out just a little too far. There we go. We now have the Drylin in there. So let's do that with this guy. And we have the second one done. All right, so I'm going to slide these back over this. And versus A or B? A or B? All right, so those are both working. So let's, did I set that collar? Ah, under the wrench. Okay, we're going to slide the stop collar back on this side. Going to get both of these outside two screws started. And we will drive those two in. Nice and snug. And then I will use the tiny little guy here, tiny little Allen wrench, to tighten up those set screws. And might as well do both sides at the same time. Okay. Then we're going to rinse and repeat that for the other side here. One of the upgrades I eventually want to do on this, but we're not going to do it today, is a variable tensioner for this belt here. That will go, if you can see it on the camera. You see where the belt is just held on by these screws wrapped around with two, whatchamacallit, wire ties, zip ties. What I am going to do is take off this spring clip and retighten one side to try to tighten that belt up some. It could use a little bit more slack. I mean, a little less slack, I should say. But this side, I just pull the whole rod right off. Make it easier to wipe. I'm not going to do the adjustable tensioner on there today. Hey, Repcord, it's coming along. We just got started, but we've got 2 of the bearings swapped out for the Drylins already on this side here, and I'm doing the other 2 right now. And once I came up to use that tweaker, makes that process really easy. Okay, so we're gonna pull this through, wipe out the oil on this side. It's pretty easy to make sure that they stay parallel. Once you get the rods themselves to stay parallel, because there's not a lot of play in the set screws or the mounting brackets here with the set screw on it. So there's not a lot of side-to-side play there. Once we put the bed back onto these, there's slots. So there may be a little bit of squaring up that we need to figure out with the bed. And we'll get to that one, I guess, when we get to that one and figure that one out. But the rods themselves stay pretty parallel. The frame is pretty well cut. One thing I am going to do today that was recommended, and I have a link on it to double check, is my understanding is that this pulley here isn't in perfect alignment with the motor, that there's actually a kilter to the belt there. And supposedly it's just as simple as reversing the position of the nut. I need to go back and look at the link. Hey, Greg. Morning. Welcome to the West Coast. So we'll go back. I'm going to go back and pull up the link as I'm doing this and probably reverse that as well to get that to line back up a little bit better. All right, so let's pop this in here. Okay, that one's done. Greg, I should have your nighttime entertainment, should have this thing back up and running, have your nighttime entertainment ready for you by this evening, I hope. So you shouldn't be too bored too long. Okay. Those slide on there nice and easy. Okay. So, yeah, random. You can see as I did that there, there's just the 2 holes to put that in. So there's not a lot of room really for the rods to get out of parallel with each other on the frame. So that's not a huge issue. Grabbing the printer, but now it should be good. Printer Smalls is pretty tiny. It doesn't add that much desk space except for this stupid external box over here. That's really the killer. The Plus version, where all of the electronics are underneath it, saves a lot of desk space. All right, let me see if I can pull up that link here in my iPad. To swapping that bearing. Simply recate the nut to the other side and bring the pulley closer to the center. Unscrew the pulley bolt, place the nut on the other side of the metal bracket, and screw the bolt back through. All right, well, that sounds simple. Let's see. What size guy we have here. You know what? That is probably a lot easier to do without the tension. So I'm going to pop off these 3 screws here at the front. Okay, that will show us the belt. So, as you can see, there's the old bearings, knocked out of the way. You can see there's a nut here at the bottom. And what they're saying to do is basically to remove this bolt, take that nut and move it to the back side of this bracket here so that this pulley gets pulled closer to the bracket, which takes up the offset for the belt there. Haha. I'm not opposed to good other prints. They don't all have to be practical, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, a lot of us got our printers by convincing our better halves, you know, of all the things that we could do around the house by having a printer. We never told the wives that we'd be printing benchies or Groots or that sort of thing. So that's kind of why I've stuck with practical prints, is to try to aim at taking things back to the roots of why we, not everybody, but a lot of us actually got these things. I mean, at least that's my take on it. Greg wanted Delta. Yes, Deltas are fun. Greg, you should look at the CME CNC H2. It's a fairly small footprint. And you get to build it yourself, which it's not hard with that guy. And this is a Torx bit. Lovely. All right, I'm going to step off camera here, guys, for a second. I'll let you talk to yourselves, but I thought that was an Allen wrench, but that is a Torx in there, so I need to see if I can find myself a metrics torque quick. So I will leave the camera open, but I will step off here really quick. Okay. Looks like it is a T15. So we'll put that into the wrench. And we'll take that out the rest of the way here. See. Sorry, I'm trying to scan back through the chat as I read this here. Okay, so that was that way. So they're basically saying to thread this directly through and put the nut on this side so that you still get the lock nut out of it. So I'm going to try that. And of course I got it too tight. What the heck? Okay, that lock nut is actually really doing its job there. The lock nut here has locked onto it so tight that now I can't get it loose. All right, there we go. Now it spins nicely and it's still locked down on that side. And yet we have it spinning nicely. So I'm going to slide around the other side of the table again here and we'll put this back in. All right. Okay, that's one more thing done there. It means you haven't been printing long enough if you're not throwing stuff at your printer. Absolutely. throwing things at your printer is a mandatory thing. All right, I am going to now try to remove this tensioning clip on here, this spring tensioning clip that I absolutely hate these things because they introduce ripple. I think these should have stayed on coat hangers where they belong. Not sure who came up with these ideas, or the idea for these. And I don't think I'm going to be able to take that off while it's under tension. So, we're going to take that there screw out. By the way, for anyone that doesn't have a set of these are made by Pick Quick. I believe they're a Canadian company. Let's see, and Amazon has just started carrying them recently. They have them in both metric and SAE. They are hardened Allen wrenches that work great on both a torque wrench or on your favorite nut driver there. Okay, so with this loose, we can take that off of there. We can make sure that we are looped over the belt. And we can tighten back up. See, this is one of my complaints about the Di3, and the reason I want to eventually, if you guys can see that on the camera, the belts extrude all the way, they just barely go through this, and the belts just basically wrap around the screw with no spacer or anything at all. It works, but you're putting tension on that, which is fine, but the way those are sticking out so far, it's very, very awkward. So I've got that on there, but now I have a lot of slack. So now I'm going to, unfortunately, have to tension this side back up. So that means I need to snip these two. Toss those out of the way. Happen to have 2 extra wire ties here, but we're just going to start with 1. I'm going to prep that. Rep cord, yep, Pick Quick. I don't know how hardened they are. I mean, I wouldn't honestly be using them to tear apart an automotive engine. They may actually be stainless steel because they're non-magnetic. Again, I've found them to work really well for printer assembly and such, but I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go using them to rebuild an engine on your car. And let's see, that goes that way. Slide that over that. Lower the frame if the drill has the hammer. Yeah, I'm sorry, Random. I don't have the option of getting the camera closer in this case. Right now, I'm not replacing this with anything. I'm just pulling off the... Excuse me. I'm just pulling off the spring clip tensioner for now. Eventually, this is going to get an adjustable one, but for today, just to get through this, we are just pulling off the spring clip and manually tensioning the belts. Just because I want to be able to get this done this morning before needing to head out for family time here. There we go. All right, so now that that's done, we can look at trying to start placing this guy on. So I am just going to very loosely thread these in, and this is where I was saying earlier that your axis can get a little bit off because these are slidable plates, so there will be some, if anything, eyeball squaring that needs to happen. And actually, it looks like I missed the hole completely. I'm not tightening these down at this point. I'm just trying to loosely get these in there. Hey, NLTMW. Never let the machines win. How are you? Jeff, thank you, sir. Correct, Random. It won't change the squareness necessarily of your print, but it does make it a lot nicer when things are squared up, and it does impact how the belt is going to try to pull it. It is indeed my birthday. Yes, thank you. I wasn't gonna hit that topic, but Jeff broached it there. Oh, thank you. Wi-Fi issues are never fun. Yep, thank you, Random. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Now the fun part. I'm going to tilt this without pulling those any more than I have to. And the fun part is getting this belt through into the plate. Okay, now flip it back over. Set this back here out of the way again. And What color filament do I want? Oh, RepCord, you don't have to send me anything. But if you were to send me something, I'm always a blue and gray kind of guy. Yeah, unfortunately, Greg, I am not popular enough yet to have Super Chat. I'm not like them fancy guys like Dustin or Noob. Which, by the way, if any of you guys have not seen yet, 3D Maker Noob just hit 10K, and he has formally announced that he is leaving his full-time job to focus on bringing us content full-time. So, really excited to see what he's going to be putting out. Well, thank you, RepCord. I will DM you later. We'll have a conversation. And going back to what we were talking about earlier about this squaring it up, even though these are slots, what it looks like there is actually once we get the belt on and all of the screws in here, it does look like it actually self-squares itself. Even though they're slots, it pulls it to the right side of the slot. So all I have to do at this point is tighten everything up. Let's go back to the big wrench. I know I use the power tools for taking it apart, but I usually like to reassemble things by hand. Yes, RepCord, I believe the sub-level for Super Chat is 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. Jeff would know the answer to that. Or 3D printing tips, you just posted. So I'm just under halfway there. Slow and steady, steady and slow. Random, I agree. 10K seems ambitious to be doing content full time, but I think he has some other things in mind besides just YouTube. So we'll see where that leads. Okay. Belt is reasonably tight. New plate feels very rigid, so we are back on there. So next step is to get this heat bed back on here. I think if anybody could make a go at doing this thing full time, Joe is definitely the man. Reportedly, that's a tough question, Random. Reportedly, the IGUS bearings are some of the quietest available, but there's a lot of other facts besides just the tolerance and or the material. I mean, There's tolerances that come into play, vibration of the printer and how solid your printer is itself. So the IGUS bearings, for a lot of people, seem to be one of the quieter bearings, and they're lower maintenance in a lot of regards. They don't need lubrication at all. They're very well regarded in that regard. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of stepping out of frame to get this in. All right, let's see if I can do. But again, I mean, ceramic bearings, if you could find them or if they're available, would definitely be very quiet as well. All right, I am going to unplug this stepper to prevent the feedback that you guys hear whenever it goes in. That is all back together. And that is our sound of our linear motion there. So that's pretty quiet. So that part is done. Drop these spring clips in here. That part is done. Let me plug this back in before I forget. And please, guys, remind me that I did unplug the Z motor steppers here when I was moving it up earlier. So remind me to plug those in later. And let's get some of this rubbish out of the way here. I think this plate is going to be, I mean, it definitely feels a lot more solid, a lot more rigid, so I think it's going to do as advertised, as what RepRap Champion's intended. It's really reasonably priced. It's only about $25 for the plate, and I know that sounds like a lot of money for just a chunk of aluminum, but it is machined well, and it's fit to work with any version of the Di3. So let us, the Z bracing is what we're going to do next. So let's try to rotate this. Random, yes, you can replace those. I'm sorry, you can just remove those. You will need to retension the belt after you do that, though, and that's what I was doing there that unfortunately the camera could not zoom in enough on. If you, I did the same thing on the X belt, but if you remove that spring, you will need to tighten it down just a bit and put new zip ties on it to hold it. But removing those theoretically should get rid of some ripple and oscillations that you see as the belts are allowed to spring. So you should theoretically get a cleaner print. That being said, you may need to tension your belts more frequently as they stretch. Oh, you have one, Robert. Great. Doesn't the PrinterBot Plus come with an E3D, Greg? Or what is that using? Random, sorry, I'm going backwards through the chat, so I'm not catching everything in order here. Random, I did put the link to the IGUS bearings down below. Folgertech sells those, and I think they're about $2 a piece. They're really reasonable. They are genuine IGUS bearings. I would not recommend buying the fake Drylin bearings or fake IGUS. IGUS is the manufacturer. I would buy them from somewhere reputable so that you know that you are getting true and actual IGUS bearings and not a fake copy. The fake copies have a little bit of issues with tolerance, and the materials don't seem to hold up. Tom Solander also did a great video on the IGUS bearings, and that's part of what made me decide to upgrade to those. And there's several other videos out there on those. Let me do this here. There we go. So, kick that camera around. So our next step is going to be to do the rods. Let me see if I can catch back up with chat. Oh, they have their own ceramic style hot end. Okay. Thanks, Repcord. I will hit you up later. We'll have a conversation. Have a good day. Don't enjoy those mountains up there, man. I wish we have the beaches, so I'm not going to say I want more. I'm happy with those. Yeah, random. That's pricey. I did put the link down in the video description for the Folgertech for those IGUS bearings. There's a place in the Wanhao Facebook group also that offers discounted i3 parts, and they do sell batches of the i3 bearings as well. I believe they sell them in quantities like bulk packages of 5, 6, whatever. So it takes 4 of them for the bed, and depending on which version of the depends which version of the x-axis you have on what that will take. The 2.1 is kind of odd because it uses the long style bearing in a single size holder. So I haven't decided if I'm going to swap that out or not. It would definitely be quieter than that. And mind you, that is lubricated. That's just the steppers feeding back. But they shouldn't be any more than about $2 a piece at Folgertech. Let me double check that here. Yeah, $1.75 a piece at Folgertech. They have 3 sizes, the 01-08, 01-10, and 01-12. Those are for 8mm, 10mm, and 12mm rods. So you do want to make sure that you get the 8mm rods. You're in Canada. I don't know what Folgertech charges to ship to Canada. You might look around. Or you just order them, have them shipped to Greg, and have him mail them up for you. All right, so before we start the Z-braces, I'm going to step off camera here really quick, run in the house, grab a refill on my cup of coffee. So I will just, I'll turn this around and let you guys stare at it. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rotate it that way. I'll let you look at this back plane here while I run for coffee, and I will explain what I did with that as soon as I get back with a quick refill. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Am I back? Yeah, I'm back. All right. So I mentioned this as I was leaving. What I did is, if you had caught the previous stream, I had done an upgrade to a Cohesion 3D smoothie board in here a few weeks ago. But one thing, if anybody's ever popped these boxes open, no, there's a power supply that hangs from the top, and it takes this upper half. It gets really warm in there. So what I did was, I don't really have a way to zoom in on that better, but I used what's called a speak-on connector here, which is a 4-pole high current connector. It's used in PA systems for large speakers. And I basically removed the power supply and remoted it in and printed a new backplane. I also used this backplate. I was inspired by one that I saw on Thingiverse and created my own. These are keystone size for network jacks. So the smoothie board itself has an upgrade for Ethernet. So I'm going to eventually remote that over to this as soon as I get that installed. And as soon as I can find one, I'm going to remote the USB to that instead of having a cable permanently attached. Hey, thanks, Greg. I will catch you later. Glad it sounds and looking good for you. Enjoy your afternoon, my friend. All right, so let me get this turned around, and I want to get the Z-brace installed, but I'm not going to go through the process of getting it squared up and leveled, because this table itself is not necessarily level. The build surface that I'm working on is not necessarily flat and level. So I'm going to rotate that like that so that you guys can see that, I think. That seems to be about the best view there. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the process of squaring it up with the tie lines on there, but I am going to get them installed, and then I'm going to go through the process off camera of squaring it up once I get it back where it belongs. So let me go over here. I have the instruction manuals for this pulled up, I think, on how to install it. Yep, here we go. .5 millimeter, and start by unscrewing 3 screws. The lower left side of the frame, that's these 3. So let's pop these 3 out. And I'm going to go power tool here, because I can. So here goes the mic audio off for a second. Get those off. Remove the 3 M screws. Replace by longer screws. Set the original screws aside just in case. Okay, so now we need one of these here brackets. In fact, let me just take all of these out of the baggies quick. So those are the 2 lower ones. And we have 4 M5 screws. And a whole bunch of M3 screws. So I'm going to take the bag that them screws were in and put the ones we're removing out back in it and set those over there. So this is going to go according to the pictures like that. So we're going to use 3 of these. These. So you'll see it probably more on the other side, but this bracket actually tucks back around the corner, so it holds it really nice and tight. Let's get these tightened up. Okay. On the top, we're going to remove these inside 2 screws. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure the outside screws are tight, because we do not want the frame slipping. And I'm going to, again, put these into the bag here. And bracket is going to go on here in this orientation. Put these in loosely for now. We will tighten down. And we'll take a rod. This says to back these out a bit. We're going to back those. We're going to take the rod and back out the eyelets a bit. And these will take an M5. And again, I will loosely get that started there. And we'll lower that down to there. Connection rod side with the left-hand threads is facing up, which is indicated by a little groove here. So I'm going to switch from the 2.5 millimeter to the 4 millimeter hex. We'll tighten those up. And that side is done. Now, once that's installed, these lock washers here will thread down to keep it locked in place. Or thread up to it, I should say. So we just need to repeat that for the other side. So let's kill the mic for a second. We'll go back to Power Tools. Sorry, I've been talking to myself for a while. I forgot to turn the mic back on after using the power tool. What I was saying, if for anybody that couldn't read lips there, this is it. The next step would be to use a square or a carpenter's square to loosen up the points on the frame. Make sure that the frame is squared up, and then adjust your turnbuckles at the top and the bottom to get everything square and tight. Make sure that the tower and your frame is at a square 90 degrees, and then lock it down with these lock nuts on each of the four corners, and of course make sure everything is tightened back up at that point. Yeah, first sign of old age. You got me. Senility runs in my family, and it started early with me. But let's see. I think that's about it. I don't want to take the time to square this out, because once I get it moved off this wobbly table and back to where it belongs onto a flat surface, it would kind of be doing it a disservice to have to do it twice. Once it is squared up, then of course you'd go back through and do your normal bed leveling process. I need to put the bed pieces back on. And we go from there. But I think that is about it. Again, this kit was roughly $50, I believe. Let me double check that. I have the links in the chat, but so let me double check that. Yeah, it's $49.99 for this kit. And again, you can use the do-it-yourself kits. There's plenty of instructions for that out there online. I think this one just was mostly cosmetically better, but it also feels more stable because of the aluminum brackets and the ball joints in the turnbuckle ends. So it feels a lot more professional and sturdy or accurate, I think, than some of the do-it-yourself ideas. Then again, we're makers, so there's nothing wrong with making. But that is a $50 kit, and there's two different versions of the Z-brace set. There's one for the V1, V2, and V2.1 Maker Select, and there's a second Z-brace kit intended for the Plus version. Now, these are for the Wanhao, the Cocoon Tech, any of the others. The X Carriage Plate that we put in down there sells for $25. RepRap Champion also runs a lot of specials that if you buy both of them at the same time or order multiple items, which is what happened when I ordered both of these, I received a 10% discount off the lot since I bought both the Z-brace kit and the bed at the same time. So I ended up saving a few bucks there. So, all of that said, the aluminum plate down there that we put in, I have seen on Thingiverse, and unfortunately I couldn't find the links when I went back to look for it, so it would probably take some digging. But there are links to the, there are CAD files, DXF files for the aluminum plate. So if somebody has a laser cutter at their disposal, or a CNC machine available to them, then you could save that $25 and, make your own plate. But not too much, Mike. Not too much. Again, you could make your own plate, and I'm starting to ramble at this point because that senility is hitting. And my mind is already jumping ahead to the next thing. So I think we'll leave it with that. If anybody still watching has any questions in the chat, I'll give that a couple of seconds to catch up with the latency for any last minute questions. Yeah, you're the old man, Jeff. I think you've got all of us outaged there. Any other questions on the upgrades and what these are going to do for you? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? 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 Regs pre-impregnated with WD-40, new $1 million business idea. So you want WD-40 baby wipes, Ray? Is that what you mean? Or like Clorox wipes, but WD-40 in them? All right, thank you, Ray. Yeah, they do look a lot more polished than the threaded rod do-it-yourself kits that I have seen. So props goes out to RepRap Champion on that. Well, if no one has any more questions on the build or the updates, I think we'll leave it at that so I can get this thing moved back to where it belongs and get it squared up and get it printing. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you next time on Practical Printing. Stay tuned for more upgrades to this guy as we start with the X-Access. I think that will be coming down the pipe here very soon. And I will keep you guys posted with any feedback on the kits or any future feedback on the kits. And performance, be sure to watch Twitter for prints that show maybe before and after, if I can get anything like that to come out. Maybe some of the calibration cubes that I've been doing, if I can see a noticeable difference. We'll play it by ear. Anyway, we'll see you next time on Practical Printing. Aloha. Here we go. All right, you ready? Let's do this. 1, 2, 3.